Oklahoma City has so many offices and new offices, there are not enough people to fill them. Well, the same thing is happening with multifamily dwellings. It takes an average of 14 months to build an apartment complex, and for the last 2 years, construction had gone crazy. The oil boom brought in more people. Apartments were needed, but that is not the case now. Nevertheless, developers continued to build.
Speculation, just like the office. There was no reason to continue to build some of the office buildings that we've built in the city, except there was some speculation. They were hoping, the people were hoping that the oil and gas thing would turn around real quick.
Another reason multifamily dwellings are not doing well is housing. People can better afford mortgage payments now and opt to buy a home. The future for multifamily dwellings looks bleak. The occupancy rate could drop to 15% from the 89% it is now. Bella Shaw, Action 4. If a 1989 World's Fair were to be held in Oklahoma City, it would be held at the Fairgrounds. The Fairgrounds has 430 acres of land. No World's Fair has ever been held on grounds that big. It's estimated some 11 million people would pay Oklahoma City a visit during the fair's 180-day run. Could Oklahoma City handle such a crowd? According to Chamber of Commerce estimates, construction on new hotel rooms would give Oklahoma City 25,000 rooms come 1989. So there would be plenty of places for people to stay in. The Chamber also says there are a number of other reasons an international committee might say yes to Oklahoma City.
Passage of liquor by the drink might spur that on. The addition of a horse race track and parimutuel betting might spur the building of hotels on. In any case, housing historically has not ever really been a problem for any World's Fair except Knoxville, and they were the ones that made it the problem.
So, what are the chances? Pretty good, says the Chamber of Commerce, since Knoxville, a town half our size, had one, and they predict we'll have enough hotel rooms. There are 3 major interstates that converge in this area. They say it's all systems go to launch Oklahoma City as the site for the 1989 World's Fair. A decision isn't expected until the spring of next year. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the State Fairgrounds.
Outcome of the investigation showed that there was no wrongdoing on the part of any department personnel as far as conflict of interest or favoritism. The only thing that did arise out of the investigation was that approximately 26 personnel were shown to have not followed the guidelines set by the department for obtaining prior approval for outside employment.
For months now, a small band of Oklahoma City residents have been seeking to declare several gay clubs as a public nuisance. Today, council members were to decide if public hearings would be necessary. City leaders listened to residents complain that some of the clubs were not even trying to work with the neighborhood, and that rowdy behavior was the biggest problem.
They're gathering on the parking lot, and after the club closes, we have picked up whiskey bottles and beer bottles from the parking lot of the Associates building, which Mr. Pape owns. I could have brought them down, but I didn't think the council wanted to see empty whiskey and beer bottles. But they are a disturbance to the area.
The clubs in question are all located near Northwest 39th and Penn. They're the Nightlife Club, Angles, and the Saddle Tramps Club. Opponents of the clubs did say they felt the Saddle Tramps Club is cooperating in solving the feud, but some patrons of the clubs feel the businesses are being attacked for prejudice reasons only.
when they're living right next to a bar, they're going to have that noise. They're going to have the dancing, the partying, and all that stuff. If they don't like it, people can move. I mean, you're not going to move every bar in the city. And I don't know of anybody complaining about a straight bar that's being loud and beer cans and everything else. It's just a gay bar. It's gay, so it's a novelty, and they're going to pick on it.
The council eventually decided to table action on all the clubs because Ward 2 Councilwoman Marge Feeney, who represents this area, was out of town today. The residents are still demanding public nuisance hearings, and it's almost guaranteed the public from this neighborhood will be heard from again when Councilman Feeney returns. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Northwest Oklahoma City.
Things have gotten so busy at the U.S. Bankruptcy Office in downtown Oklahoma City that you have to take a number to get waited on. A few hundred people come through this office each day, and about 30 of them file for bankruptcy. The clerks are swamped with bankruptcy cases. They estimate almost 4,000 people will file for bankruptcy by the end of the year, and the number of bankrupt companies will have increased almost 200%.
The economy is now coming out of the slump, out of the recession. Usually at the end of a recession, more bankruptcies are filed than going into it, because when they're coming out of the recession, people are starting to want their money because it's coming out. That's one reason. Another reason is the credit spigot has been cut off to a lot of these oil companies.
More than 1,700 individuals and companies have filed for bankruptcy during the last 6 months. That's just 20 less than the total number filed for 1982. The biggest increase is in the number of companies filing for Chapter 11. Mount says at the present trend, bankruptcy will be up this year 200% over last year. Debbie Mash, Action 4 in downtown Oklahoma City.
In the past, patients checked in for services under Medicare were covered on a basis of cost per day. Now their payment will be based on what is called a DRG, or diagnosis-related groups. What that means is patients with the same problem will be paid the same money, no matter how long they stay. So if your total bill amounts to more than the new government limit, the hospital's out some money, and the person who'll probably make up that difference is you, the Medicare recipient. You can turn to more supplemental insurance coverage, but chances are the rates there will be higher now, thanks to TEFRA. But Medicare patients aren't the only ones who will be affected negatively by this new program. Hospitals will be feeling the squeeze too, just not immediately.
Eventually, it will affect them if they get less funds. They will not be able to keep up with technology as they have in the past. And maybe not be able to provide the treatment to patients as they have in the past because of the reduced amount of funds.
So what's the reason for this squeeze on Medicare patients in hospitals? Cutbacks. The government hopes to save $13.3 billion a year through the TEFRA program. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Daddy said he was going to get the bullwhip out when he got her home.
The Rainbow Hills apartment complex opened early this year, bringing unique living to the handicapped, with units especially designed for the convenience of the disabled. In April, just a few months after the complex opened, a car sheared off a nearby gas meter, causing an explosion and fire. That explosion left the residents of the complex homeless and sent 7 Oklahoma City firemen to the hospital.
We were eating supper at 6:30. 6:35 we tried and shut the meter off. 6:36 we were blown up.
Now, 3 months later, most of those firemen have returned to their jobs.
When the first few days I was apprehensive, and as the days and the weeks go by, I, get my confidence back that I, can and will do the job.
There are signs of recovery at the Rainbow Hills complex as well. This week, reconstruction began with a target completion date of mid-November.
Until the project is complete, many of the Rainbow Hills residents are forced to live with family and friends and without the convenience the complex offered them.
They haven't been able to find adequate housing to suit their needs because these apartments are specially designed for the handicapped people.
When the complex does reopen, most of the former residents are planning to move back in, to start again where they left off when the fire destroyed their home. Dan Slocum, Action 4.
Looks like there was a struggle back in that corner there, and beyond that, we really can't tell much about it, but I don't think.
Everything's settled because it's a little bit of a upset life, and I've been and one of my sons is practicing law in Fredericktown, Missouri, with the Mississippi River. The next county over is Bullinger, and that's where I grew up, about 4,000. And he's the next county over from where I grew up. So that's the big challenge, managing the programs within limited resources so that not only do we not have to shut down anything essential, but we continue to make some progress in areas where we've got big problems. For instance, mental retardation. We have to go ahead and invest more in community-level services and in the schools for the mentally retarded to discharge our responsibilities. And finding money to do that at a time when the total budget is basically flat is very hard.
Former District Judge William Page faces a 4-count federal grand jury indictment, accusing him of racketeering activities and extorting bribes from criminals while he was a judge and assistant district attorney. This morning's testimony revolved around the men who worked the investigation against Page, the FBI. Prosecutors called agent after agent to the stand in an effort to establish credibility and the chain of possession of some controversial phone conversation recordings between Page and others. The tapes were recorded in March of 1982, at the height of the investigation, while the FBI had a wiretap on the judge's telephone line. None of the tapes had been played for the jury by late this afternoon, but there is little doubt they will be. The recordings are considered the key to the prosecution's case. Defense counsel had few questions for today's witnesses. Testimony will resume tomorrow morning. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Back to my own college time, which is somewhat a few years back, but the most, I believe our system of government, if it's to work and survive and serve as well as it should, needs some of the best people we produce. I think it's wrong to have a governmental process that fails to attract qualified and talented people. So I hope I can help to instill in some talented young people the desire to enter public service, even as Democrats.
It took Oklahoma City firemen less than half an hour to bring the blaze under control, but that by no means made this easy work. When the firefighters first arrived at the scene of the 3-alarmer, smoke was so thick and black, there was no telling how many buildings were involved. Luckily, this unit turned out to be the only victim. There were people inside the complex.
We thought there wasn't anybody in. I thought it was still vacant, and all of a sudden a girl comes pouring out of this black smoke, said that someone was still in there. A bunch of workers went in and tried to get him, and he was trying to call the fire department. the building was about half caught on fire by then now.
The couple's apartment, along with the other 7 units, received heavy smoke, water, and flame damage. Early estimates have been set at more than $200,000. At this time, firefighters have few leads on the cause of the fire.
Well, it appears to have started on the top, on the second floor, on the east side, and then with the wind coming from the opposite direction, burned across. Most of the heaviest burn damage is upstairs. Heavy water and smoke damage throughout all 8 units. Not a total loss, but certainly substantial loss.
The work has only just begun for these firemen, even though the blaze is out. Now comes the long, tedious task of searching through the rubble for a cause. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
The 9% mark for unemployment is the highest the state has seen since they started keeping records. Last year at this time, the figure was 5.5% and rising. Researchers blame the high rate on the slump in the petroleum industry. More than 1 out of every 4 petroleum workers from last year was laid off, tallying a loss of more than 30,000 jobs. Other industries suffered significant losses. Factories dropped more than 17,000 workers, construction is down by nearly 9,000 jobs, and transportation and public utilities are down by more than 4,000. All in all, more than 137,000 people are out of work in the state that a year ago had the lowest unemployment. Will Bowman of the Employment Securities Commission says there were some improvements over last month, though, and he expects more improvements down the road.
We've been through a very severe shakeout in many of the industries, and signs are that things are starting to improve. How rapid the improvement will be remains to be seen.
Bowman says the monthly figure would have reflected a drop in unemployment if it hadn't been for the influx of students looking for summer work. Whatever the cause, the high rate is not good, but it is still below the national rate by more than a point. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
We hope that it's not common as far as, equipment malfunctioning most of the time, because when it happens, of course, especially in the middle of a day like yesterday that was so hot and here in the summertime, but we never know, of course, when a piece of equipment, will go out, may malfunction for whatever reason. And we suspected yesterday that it might have been heat-related or a piece of equipment that might have just been old, but it turned out to be nothing more than just a malfunction, like your car would malfunction when you don't know it's going to.
Tim and Claudia would have been married 8 years today, but 2 months ago Tim died unexpectedly. It was shock for Claudia. It was as though her whole world fell apart. She had been Tim's wife and friend. Now she was alone. Claudia did what most young widows do. She withdrew from her friends. She isolated herself in grief. She felt she couldn't cope with life.
It's the loneliness and the missing them not coming home, their car not being here, and coming home to an empty home. It's really hard, knowing they won't be here. But at first, it's just like you don't think you can survive it. It's too hard to even comprehend, to think about it and to be able to really deal with the reality of the situation.
Claudia has changed since then. She found a support group called Widows Exchange, a group of women in her situation who meet every month to talk, perhaps even cry. But the result is the same. They realize they are not alone, and there is a way for life to go on.
They took care of all
we
that
come to
stuff.
school, you know, you got married, your husband
The
took
man
care of
takes
you,
care
you
of all
managed the
that.
house, and they did all the other stuff.
The Mental Health Association sponsored the support group for a number of years, but now it's supported by the Red Rock Mental Health Center.
I think the first thing that it offers is people who have been through the same thing. I've worked with the group for a number of months now, and I'm convinced that there is no way I can ever know really what they go through unless it happens to me. I think that's what the Widows Group offers for the people who come through, somebody who really knows what they're going through, who can sit there and share their grief and share their feelings in a really intimate and personal way.
Bellishaw Action 4 at the Red Rock Mental Health Center.
Anybody heard from him, I wonder?
You're working up a sweat there, buddy. Slow down. Take it easy.
This is a danger.
What we're trying to do here is create an environment in which urban man can become reacquainted with his natural surroundings, and I think the landscaping is key to that happening. Of course, the botanical bridge will contribute to that, and the plantings that are being put in here this morning with the help of Channel 4 are greatly appreciated.
The main test used by the Oklahoma Cardiovascular Institute is an OPG. It's a simple, painless procedure that measures the flow rate of your blood. Strangely enough, it's measured through your ears and eyes. Ear clips are placed on each lobe, and on the eyes goes a contact-like cup. They're all connected to a monitor that gives out a reading of your rate. Just by watching those numbers, a doctor can tell if you're a possible candidate for a stroke. But here at the Institute, that's not enough. On every patient, a 2-hour session of expensive testing will be done. And the best part is it's all free. So there's absolutely no reason to miss what could be the only warning you'll get before a stroke.
In fact, most patients who develop a stroke are not given the privilege of a warning. A few patients have temporary blindness, temporary paralysis. Those are the fortunate few. But for the vast majority of patients developing a stroke, it occurs without warning and with devastating suddenness.
The free test is available to those who are considered at high risk for stroke. That's anyone over 50 who has a family history of stroke or heart disease, has high blood pressure, diabetes, high serum cholesterol, smokes, or is overweight. If that's you, call the Oklahoma Cardiovascular Institute and set up a test today. The number is 272-7200. The free examinations are available from 9 to 4 Monday through Friday, and don't forget, it takes 2 hours. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
The restrooms are not safe in many schools. If you go there, you will lose your lunch money, and that's well known. The atmosphere in the classroom is one of defiance many times.
Bowers told Oklahoma City School Board members that going to school in this district isn't safe. Bowers and other members of the American Federation of Teachers blame many of the problems in area schools on weak discipline. Based on information gathered during discipline hearings, the AFT has proposed 14 changes in the district's discipline guidelines, such as training teachers and principals on how to discipline students, filing charges against any student who commits a criminal offense, and having parents sign a discipline fact sheet, and a reward system for students with good behavior.
We're going to have to act very swiftly and incisively to cure the problem, resolve the problem. Every parent has the right to expect his or her child to attend school in a safe, clean, sanitary environment.
Tonight, the Oklahoma City School Board did not take any action on the discipline proposals, but AFT President Dave Renfro says his organization wants these changes made immediately. Renfro says this battle isn't over until the school board adopts at least some of their recommendations. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at the School Administration Building.
Over. By implementing additional safeguards, there is no way such an embezzlement could be committed today, and there is no way any such theft could remain undetected for long, with the frequent internal audits now being conducted.
AIDS is reaching such alarming proportions that Newsweek magazine and other periodicals are devoting cover stories to the mysterious disease. Only 2,000 cases have been reported nationwide. But when you consider it takes 2 years for the incubation process to occur, undoubtedly there will be many others. The gay lifestyle is thought to be a contributing factor for the spread of the disease, and health officials are trying to link it to blood transfusions and drug use. Gays are not as common in Oklahoma as in other parts of the country. For that reason, Oklahoma health officials don't expect an epidemic here.
We doubt that there will ever be a large number of deaths from AIDS in Oklahoma because we just don't have the numbers of people in the high-risk groups that you find on the East Coast and on the West Coast. But I would not be surprised if over the months to come we did not see additional fatalities attributed to AIDS.
For some of the people who suspect they might have AIDS, what are some of the symptoms?
Some of the more characteristic things that you would look for would be swollen lymph nodes. You might have a chronic fatigue or tiredness. You might have chronic recurrent sore throats. You might have a variety of vague and ill-defined complaints.
One can only expect that more deaths from the disease will alter the homosexual lifestyle. Gays not only have the disease to contend with, but the fear of getting it. Debbie Mash has more on that story.
Looks like the fish on the post. Right over here. Yeah. Not all.
How long was he? Pretty